Now, my father, who was the third son, okay, named me Bartholomew. Bartholomew James, Giacomo in Italian, but James Galletta. Okay, I have a brother named John. My children are Giacomo Jack in English, okay, and Robert, and my daughter's name is Joanne. Then I have three grandchildren. Okay, Jack's son is named Bartholomew after me. Only he's Bartholomew L. Galletta. Okay. Then there's my granddaughter, very talented young lady, by the way. Okay, named Julia Galletta Hahn. Okay, that's the pie I like, and a wonderful grandson. I called him Little Boy Blue. I'll tell you about that later on, but why I call him Little Boy Blue. But he's my sidekick. He works with me on the stock market. And I love this kid. He's intelligent, and all my grandchildren are intelligent. But he's very special too. Okay, now, all three of them are very special. All right, to get back to. The first Bartholomew lived on Bonadea, and he really didn't, I don't have too any background on him, but his son, okay, my great-great-great-grandfather became a sailor because there wasn't too much to be offered on the island of Bonadea. So he became a sailor probably at the time in the Genoese Navy because it was the largest navy in the world in commerce. And so he finally went to Australia where he earned an amount of money. Okay, I don't know whether it was probably considerable enough for him to be eligible as a groom. He came back to Sicily, and a marriage was arranged between him and Rosa Gaeta. And she was, like I say, she's a tiny woman. You'll see a picture of her. Wasn't very good looking, but again, she was a Baronessa. And she was 8 years older than him, and she was educated. So they made an arrangement, they got married, and they lived on the island, the main island of Lipari, where they bought property, and they lived off the produce of that property. At the time also, things were so bad that they had 7 servants who worked for them. But the servants probably worked for just found, because there was no money around at that time. They worked because if they didn't have a job, they wouldn't eat. So they worked just to have a roof over their head and to eat at the time. I'm pretty sure of it, okay? Now, he had 2 sons, Bartholomew, which was my father, my grandfather, and Anthony, okay? Nino. Now, eventually my grandfather left Lipari, and he was educated now. His mother made sure he was educated. He could read and write. And he went to join the Genoese Navy, Commerce Navy, and he spoke Sicilian, he spoke Italian, because actually there's 2 different languages, because he learned Italian in school, but he spoke Sicilian because he was a Sicilian. And the Genoese he had to learn how to speak because he worked on a Genoese ship. My grandfather eventually went to Buenos Aires, where he had relatives. They had the Saltalamacchias who were involved in what do you call it? Customs, and Russos who were like relatives. And he stayed there and worked. My grandfather worked as a chef. He was very good at cook. My grandfather probably worked on the Genoese ship as a chef because the food was always available. Good food was always available because he cooked the food for the captain. So while he was in Spain, he learned how to speak Spanish. And then eventually he waited for his brother to come to Buenos Aires so the two of them would go to Australia and make their fortune. However, Anthony, Nino he called him, okay, for short. They're very good on short names, okay. Died of influenza, so they left my grandfather alone. So my grandfather came to New York, where his uncle, the twin brother of his mother, okay, the Giacomo Galletta, the Baron, okay, and he was married to Anna Saltalamacchia, who was my grandmother's aunt, and the marriage was arranged between the two of them. So he stayed here and he married her, had the 5 sons. Okay, and he worked in a tailoring business. Now my grandfather was a pretty smart guy, because besides the 5 or 6 languages he spoke, okay, he spoke Syrian too. I don't know how that came about. I think he had a Syrian girlfriend, but he spoke Syrian. But the fact that he was nimble enough to be able to go to school here and to graduate as a master tailor. To become a master tailor, you had to design a pattern, cut the pattern, and build a suit, okay? It wasn't, so it made me sound easy, but it wasn't that easy, okay? But once you did it and you graduated, you were considered a master tailor. My grandfather was also one of the founders of the International Garment Workers Union. He was one of their tough guys. And he got in trouble for it, okay? And I mean, he went to jail, but not for very long, but they would fight and do whatever they had to do. The reason I'm bringing that up is because you'll understand why later on, when the union was formed, he could not become a delegate because he had a record of arrests. Okay, but they weren't arrests in a sense, they were only arrests for the union, okay? He wasn't a crook or a gunman or anything like that, nothing to do with it. This was for the union. But he couldn't become a delegate. But my Uncle Tommy, his second son, became a delegate of the union. Did very well. I mean, it was, considered a prestigious job in a sense, okay? My father was the 3rd son, and my father graduated college in 3 years. Smart man. But he never really, applied, maybe it was the time, but he never really applied himself to making a lot of money, okay? Which, that's his thing, okay, in any event. But he always took care of his family, and that's all I could say for him. My mom was a housewife. She worked, and when she was a young girl, she had to leave school and work because things were very hard. It was a depression area. And little things like where they used to work, it was cold. And the machines were cold, the sewing machines were cold. And so they used to take gloves and cut the tips off the gloves, but wear the gloves, but they needed the tips for the feeling, for when they were sewing. But eventually, between the cold and everything else, you could see her fingers would deform from the rheumatism that she develops as she was working hard. I mean, there are certain things I could say, but, certain things just to be able to make you understand the lifestyles of each person. Now, as for myself, okay, I was born under a wonderful star. I really am a very fortunate man. I married the girl that was the dream of my life, okay? When I was 14 years old, I met a young girl named Josephine Campisi. And I fell in love. And May 29th, 1948, I said I was going to marry her. And of course, that was a big joke, but eventually I married her. Took a little while, about 8 years, but I married her, and then we have a family, right? And after 62 years, we're still married. Oh, God bless me for being a wonderful husband. In any event, to go on, I always have one great ability. That ability was to make money. I could always make a buck. I would sit back and look at things, look over things, and eventually I find a way to make a buck. My children can attest to that, so can my wife. Okay? The reason I'm saying that is because I hope that one of you inherits that gift. Whether you do or not, just remember, I would like you to be good to your family, okay, to love your family, okay? And I love my family, okay? I love my children, okay? They're everything to me, okay? And they can tell you this. If they want to talk, they can tell you this. Maybe they'll be your grandpa and or whatever, and they'll tell you how much I love them, okay? To go on, just knock it off for a minute.